everybody.
Howdy. Welcome to our brand of insanity, or should I say our shock and mock.
Yeah, that we do.
Because we do like to shock and mock, don't we, Kim?
Yes. But along those lines, we kind of have a disclaimer because we had a couple of people say that we crossed the line and we were making fun of, the poor people in Africa in one of our latest videos, the opium effect. And we just want to mention that we were in no way making fun of the poor people in Africa. And we like to show Watchtower's propaganda, and we were appalled by the way they used these poor people for their propaganda film, because that's exactly what this was, in our personal opinion. And the reason Mike mentioned plastic buckets is because it happened in one of our old congregations, and we noticed we had never told that story. So the reason he brought up, the 5-gallon plastic buckets instead of the nice wooden benches is in our old congregation in Cottonwood, Arizona, years ago, pictures were brought and shown around the entire congregation, and the elders decided that the poor brothers in Mexico didn't have any decent seating. They had to bring their own 5-gallon plastic buckets to sit on in their dirt floor kingdom hall. And so they were going to start doing this, humanitarian aid to help these poor brothers in Mexico out. The money started flowing in.
Yep.
Now, about that same time is when they decided to remodel the Kingdom Hall for the first time in the early 80s, if I remember right. So they decided that they were going to take our really nice, cushy theater seats and take those down to Mexico. I like those seats. Those were pretty nice.
They were pretty comfortable.
The money flowed in to pay for this trip. So they got some volunteers, loaded up some trucks. I don't know if they rented a truck or what. It's been too long. But they hauled all these seats down to a congregation in Mexico. And when they came back, they were talking about how deplorable the Kingdom Hall was, with dirt floor, and just like tin. It was kind of like just a pole barn or a carport or something. And, Cottonwood kept remodeling their Kingdom Halls, and it just appalled several. And they were talking about it amongst themselves. Like out in field service, there was a lot of dissension talk about, how much we had spent remodeling our Kingdom Hall, and then all we do is just take seats. So the money poured in, and we don't know what the elders did with all that money. Have no idea.
Yeah.
So
all I do know is that it did upset a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses in the local areas, because here we are remodeling our Kingdom Hall to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, not just once, not just twice. But before we left Arizona 21 years, they had remodeled that Kingdom Hall 3 times.
And then when we had moved to Wisconsin in 2000,
they did it a 4th.
Sometime between 2000 and 2006, they had remodeled it again. And I remember his mom calling and saying how beautiful it was, and even the marble pillars.
Yeah.
So you have to have marble pillars in your Kingdom Hall that don't serve any function while raking in money for the poor brothers down in Mexico. Did you help them build a Kingdom Hall?
Well, that was a lot of the gripe and the pissing and moaning, because the amount of money that these Cottonwood, Arizona congregations spent remodeling the Kingdom Hall could have built 5 or 6 Kingdom Halls down in Mexico easily. So there was no doubt, and there is no doubt right now in my mind, that this whole Mexico thing was just a ploy, an attempt to play on people's emotions to let the money flow, just like Watchtower's doing with these JWs in the Congo. And in fact, we even got some telephone calls from a few people that pretty much said the same thing. Living in Africa, you live with the mosquitoes, just like we live with the rattlesnakes. It's a fact of life. So for Watchtower to go and give these people mosquitoes net is nothing spectacular when it comes to humanitarian aid. I mean, even one of the calls said they probably give mosquito nets as wedding gifts, and each home has probably got 2 or 3 extra nets underneath the bed. So some people can readily see through the Watchtower bullshit, and others maybe have a little bit more difficult time seeing it. And you Jehovah's Witnesses that are leaving these comments trying to challenge us and or make, trying to make it seem like, oh, but these brothers are so poor. Go back and watch the propaganda again and then think for yourself. I mean, even some of the people that called me were talking about just as soon as you said something about their healthy teeth, they were already thinking it. So we're already seeing through the propaganda, Watchtower, and it doesn't work any longer.
And instead of giving the kids sunglasses, why don't you give them crates of vegetable seeds? If they're that destitute, at least they can plant a garden and, grow their own food.
Well, the opening and closing scene showed they had a river running right through that town. Now, wouldn't this make more sense? The old adage is you give a man a fish and he eats once. You teach him how to fish and he eats forever. Now, it would seem to me that instead of giving all of these people mosquito nets and sunglasses where they probably already have 2 or 3 of these underneath their bed already, if you'd have given them a crate of seed, they could have grown food and they could have perhaps taken the surplus to the market and who knows, Watchtower, maybe they could have even had a little extra to put in that contribution box that you went ahead and blurred out to give a false impression that these people are really poor. No, I don't buy into this bullshit, this propaganda whatsoever. I see it for what it is, and I call it for what it is.
And if they were genuinely trying to help all of their poor people worldwide, it would be different. That would be a good thing. That's what they're supposed to do according to the Bible.
As Christians.
But we know that this is not what happens.
No, this is just
an absolute... And that's what we just try to do, is to point out, the propaganda and, what they're trying to get you to believe so that you will donate more.
Yeah, just like, the ASPCA and their advertisement showing the sad puppy dog eyes. They pull at your heartstrings so you can continue to let the money flow.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love my dogs. I love dogs. I hate it when people build propaganda commercials to pull at your heartstrings instead of telling you what the true fact is.
Yeah. Instead of telling you, go to your local humane society and, volunteer to help out or take them, a bunch of dog food or whatever.
There's better
there's
ways
things
of doing
you can do, instead of send us money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point we're trying to make. Now, before I forget, I want to give a shout out to our dear friends, Rob and Michelle.
Yeah.
They have a new YouTube channel. It is called Emblems for Life. Emblems for the number 4 life. And it's all one word. A beautiful Christian couple who started doing videos. We love you guys dearly. Thank you so much for the shout out.
And if you haven't seen them yet or any of their videos, please go over and introduce yourself.
Yeah. Now, in here, we're going to use a few clips from McCall and Jesse's judicial hearing. And their YouTube channel is called McCall Zupke. Zupke. And they have their judicial committee meeting. And we just want to point out a few things in here because what got us to thinking about this is we had a friend who had a meeting with his wife's elders. He's not a JW. And his wife was upset and she was crying, and he noticed the elders did nothing to comfort her. Here she is, a sister. They're supposed to be her, her spiritual shepherds. Not even a prayer. Not one prayer, no comfort, nothing. So it got us to thinking, and so we started working on this video. And then we had our dear friend in Arizona call us the unknown apostate.
Yeah.
Hi, sweetie.
Hey, your information just fell right into place. Hey, Holy Spirit, don't ever deny it.
Yeah.
But there again, I actually started working on some of this stuff when we did the last video, and I was reading from that book, Apostates of Denial,
Apostles.
Apostles, yeah, Denial of Apostles, or whatever it was titled. I don't have it. I don't have it handy right now to look at. But there was a comment in there that I read that the person or the other person writing parts of the book mentioned that Jehovah's Witnesses cause problems for Christians. And they really do, but I've got a lot of things here, and I think what I'm going to do, Kim, is I think I'm going to save this for another video, because I think this should be in a video by itself, because I went through and I found scriptures in the Bible where the Watchtower Bible Tract Society really has caused problems for Christians. And so I'm going to tackle that in a different video, but it just so happens to be that a lot of the scriptural references that I wanted to use fit perfectly for this too.
Yeah.
So,
And the point we want to bring out is these elders are supposed, our entire lives we were taught they were a shelter from the windstorm,
yeah.
They were supposed to be our rocks,
Crag in a waterless region.
They were going to help the Jehovah's Witnesses through the Great Tribulation. If there was any problems, you go to the elders. They are a source of comfort.
But what the Jehovah's Witnesses really do not comprehend, and this is part of the shock and mock, your whole bullshit judicial arrangement has already been played out in its entirety in the Bible.
Really?
They just don't know that. They don't know it because they don't know the Bible. Now, even though you've read this many times, you don't make a connection until you read what the Insight book says.
Sorry about the noise down here. The cat is after a moth and she is just tearing up my office here trying to get it. Poor moth. Okay, we've got the hard copy. This is the Insight book, Volume 2, under Job, page 82. The subheading, Arrangement. Oh, this gets good.
Prepare for some shock and mock.
The book of Job is unique in that it consists largely of a debate between a true servant of Jehovah God and 3 others who claim to serve God.
Okay, now, but isn't it like the judicial arrangement? Somebody wakes up, they, reread the Bible, they see where the truth lies, and then they confront 3 idiotic judicial elders that think they serve God.
Okay, so let me finish reading this. So it's a debate between a true servant of Jehovah God and 3 others who claim to serve God, but who erred in doctrine in their attempt to correct Job.
So Watchtower says that we've erred in doctrine, or however it was that those idiots said it during those we never said that, or Jesus never said the food would be perfect. We're not infallible. You've erred in doctrine and you're admitting it right here. You're putting yourself in the position of these 3 false comforters who claim to serve God but who were in error.
So I think this is a good time maybe to play the clip from... go ahead and read that.
Yeah, no, because we're going to get into some of this. But I wanted to read part of Zophar's commentary here to Job. Find it at Job chapter 11, verses 1 through 4. In Zophar, the Naamathite, there we go, proceeded to answer and say, "Will a multitude of words go unanswered?" Well, Watchtower would like that to go unanswered. "Or will a mere boaster be in the right?" You guys boast you have the truth. You boast that you have the 144,000. You boast that you have God's Holy Spirit directing your organization. Wow. "Or will a mere boaster be in the right?" You're all wrong, because out of all this boasting they do, they have to backtrack and say, well, we never said the food would be perfect. "Will your empty talk itself put men to silence?" No. You're not putting us to silence. That's what YouTube is all about, you idiots. "And will you keep deriding without having anyone rebuke you?" No. This whole YouTube community exposing you is rebuking you, Watchtower. God. "Also you say, my instruction is pure, and I have proved really clean in your eyes."
Yeah, that sounds like them.
Yeah, this sounds exactly like the false comforters that Job had to contend with. But see, there again, it's already been played out. We already know the beginning of Job, and we know the end. We know the beginning of Watchtower, and we know the end. This has already been played out, but the poor sap, the poor Jehovah's Witnesses, they can't comprehend this. And like all of us, we all want to go to these judicial hearings, hoping that we can get something that we could use to put on YouTube to show that these men, these three false comforters, do not provide any comfort at all in these judicial hearings. And in fact, if you're going to go to these judicial hearings, you're under a charge of apostasy. That charge will stick no matter what. Mark my words.
Yes. So we are going to put the link to McCall and Jesse's judicial hearing down below in the description. And if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend you go listen to it, because boy, it sure got Mikey riled.
Well, I just find it so funny, because they say that these three men in Job's time erred in doctrine. What doctrine were they arguing? They were arguing whether Job was a righteous man or not. There wasn't any doctrine. There wasn't any issue regarding the cross. There wasn't any issue regarding the soul dying and going to heaven. There wasn't any doctrine regarding, the bad person going to hell.
I think I might have an answer for that.
The doctrine of stupidity?
No. Customs and traditions instead of doctrine.
Oh, customs and traditions. Oh, that's where this is going.
Yep. So we've got a few clips to play.
Acts chapter 21 and verse 21. You might remember the account when you're reading it, because it had to do with the Apostle Paul when he came to this particular area, and what people were saying about him. And then it's interesting what he did, because it shows us, and it gives an example of what apostatizing would be. So in verse 21, it says, "But they have heard it rumored about you, that you have been teaching all the Jews among the nations an apostasy from Moses." So now what was this? How was he apostatizing from what Moses said? It says, telling them not to circumcise their children or to follow the customary practices. So you notice he said the customary practices. You read the rest of that account, you'll notice that what Paul did, he told the men that were with him to go and get ceremonially clean, because he didn't want to have that impression that amongst those that he was trying to preach to, that he was apostatizing from the truth. So apostatizing would mean what? What would you, from that scripture, what would you say a person would be involved in apostasy if they were doing what? Not following what?
What, circumcision?
Okay, or the customary practices, and it involved that. So customary practices, they weren't following him. So if a person that's one of Jehovah's Witnesses is not following customary practices, like, again, what do we believe about the cross? What's the custom amongst Jehovah's Witnesses regarding what Jesus died on?
On a stake.
That's customary, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't believe that, if we don't believe that and are not teaching that, then we would be apostatizing. What is Jehovah's Witnesses? What is their custom regarding the meetings? What's our customary practice regarding that?
To go to the meetings.
Yeah, regularly, right? To make it a custom of being regular at the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
What's Jehovah's Witnesses' custom regarding the faithful slave?
To feed from them.
Yeah. Do Jehovah's Witnesses believe that there's other channels that God is using?
No.
That's not a custom. It's customary. We recognize that that's the feeding program, not another in other religions. See? So this is how we can tell, if you're apostatizing, we're, giving it into apostasy. What's Jehovah's Witnesses' custom in harmony with the Bible regarding when it comes to apostate material and reading it and looking at it? What's the scriptural view and our custom of it when it comes to reading?
To not look at it?
Yeah. Not reading, not be entertained by it, not try to examine it, because again, that's going against the custom, what we've been taught. See? And so that would indicate an apostasy. So, those very things, those subjects that we've talked about, can you see how you all are getting away from those
Mm-hmm.
customary practices?
Yes. Yes.
So you see why our concern, regarding for you that you're taking that course.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Absolutely.
So it's a serious matter.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't know how much longer he's gonna be good.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're gonna actually, just if Rick's got another question, then we can adjourn for a little bit.
Sure.
Sure, it's just like what Alfred was trying to say here, that I think I lost my thought here just for a moment. Is that customary thing that we follow that direction, and when we look at other things and we read those kinds of things, you have questions, which is okay. As Jehovah's people, we always have questions. We want to have those questions answered. But when we have other material that brings up questions that are really not safe for us, are really not things that we should even be divulging into, does that it brings up different thoughts in your mind and different kinds of questions that you probably would have never even thought about before. See, all these things affect you, and that's part of Satan's world, is to have your mind affected. It's like diseases. When we get a disease, we don't really know it's there, do we? Until after we're something is the matter with us, and we have to go to the doctor and say, "Oh, you got this problem." See, and that's what happens with us with these kinds of things. Satan knows how to disease us. He knows how to affect us. And that's what he does with this information that we find and we look at and we think, what about that? Or what about this? It's like Eve in the Garden of Eden. When Satan asked her about, was talking to her there. You think she was easily deceived? We don't know how many times she talked to him. We don't know how many times all that went through. But she was deceived, see? And it might have been slowly as she was going through there. And the same as with Satan's always using that to disease us, to until all of a sudden we're affected, until all of a sudden we are dead from the disease. So these are things that you have to think about. Being a thinking man, think about the things that Satan puts out there for us to think about and ponder on and to dwell on.
Now, this judicial hearing is very good to listen to as a good example of how elders are not comforting at all and how they treat people, because when you listen to this, it was one lunch with a non-JW that she grew up with, and I believe the other person's parents were witnesses, but she was not a witness, and she still went running to the elders,
Yeah.
and this is what started this whole judicial process. Like us, you just showed your brother, who's a non-JW, a subliminal image in a watchtower, and he happens to show his mom, and then she runs to the elders. But I wanted to bring out just a couple of things that they do mention in this judicial meeting, and we didn't put the clips in here,
Because
so
there's actually a lot of them, and we just decided to cut it down
time-wise,
to this because there's actually a lot to say just with what this one clip here is was what's being presented with.
But one thing in this clip is, if you notice that if you research, you will become mentally diseased. Now, it's okay for the governing body to research, and we know there are libraries in their headquarters.
Yeah.
It's okay for them to research, but you can't, because you will become mentally diseased. Now, also in this judicial hearing, towards the beginning, they read right from their new Bible, the glossary of Bible terms on page 1693. They actually have the definition of apostasy in here, and they read it during the judicial hearing. So I just want to read this real quick. Apostasy. This term in Greek, apostasia, comes from a verb literally meaning to stand away from. The noun has the sense of desertion, abandonment, or rebellion. In the Christian Greek scriptures, apostasy is used primarily with regard to those who defect from true worship. So that is Watchtower's definition of apostasy.
Well, go ahead.
Now, also at the beginning, the elder has the new organization book, and he has the baptism questions, and he's asking this couple if they still feel, same way about their dedication. Now, Jesse happens to mention that they don't say we're Jehovah's Witnesses, we're associated with Jehovah's Witnesses. And the elders actually get all butthurt about this and bring it up later, and it's like, well, what do you mean by this? And, going through this whole thing. So I just want to remind everybody, the questions that are in this organization book, when you're standing in front of that podium at the convention, this is one of the questions they ask you. This is the second question. Do you understand that your dedication and baptism identify you as one of Jehovah's Witnesses in association with God's Spirit-directed organization? So for Jesse to say, I'm associated with Jehovah's Witnesses, that's what your second question is about. So he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, because the elder makes it sound like, you're just sitting on the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, it's really disturbing because we listened to this judicial hearing, and, it becomes really apparent that this organization, that these Jehovah's Witnesses, the truth does not resonate with them whatsoever. I thought Christianity, Jehovah's Witnesses, being a Christian was all about having truth. See, as long as this judicial meeting went on for the whole hour and a half, it come down to one thing, and one thing only.
Customs.
Customs. Are you following our customs? See, earlier they brought up the thing about the cross, the Imperial Bible Dictionary, and it's Jehovah's Witness custom to believe Jesus died on a stake. Now, some time ago I used to say, it doesn't matter what he was sacrificed on, until I started doing the research of the video I entitled The Sign Said JW's Not Welcome. It was at that point that I really realized that the TA was the symbol of salvation. That's what they would have looked for. And so
it does matter.
So it does matter. So I've actually had to change my view on that with more research. But the thing is in order for Watchtower to arrive at their custom in their teaching, they have to do nothing but cherry pick and take things out of context. Wow! That's the only way you can arrive at your customs, Jehovah's Witnesses, and this is why you cause problems for Christianity, for Christians, because you destroy the value of the cross with the stake only by taking things out of context. And then I even heard this idiot elder say the same thing that my mom said when I asked her about the ... Well, that doesn't have anything to do with the point that Watchtower wants to make. It does when you want to manufacture a lie. You damn well better believe it matters when you're manufacturing a lie.
Well, he even says that there may be some wrong things in that, quote from the Imperial Bible Dictionary. But Watchtower just took out what they were trying to make a point about. That's the whole thing we've been saying about the Imperial Bible Dictionary, is Watchtower cherry picks and manufactures lies to fit their agenda. And they throw out all that other stuff.
To manufacture a custom.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to read a scripture to you, Jehovah's Witnesses. Matthew chapter 15. Pay close attention, because this is the Bible according to Mike. Then there came to Jesus from
15:1.
15:1. Then there came to Jesus from Warwick elders in the governing body, saying, why is it that your disciples overstep the traditions of the men of former times? For example, they do not wash their hands when about to eat a meal. Verse 6, he must not honor his father at all. And so you have made the word of God invalid because of your tradition.
Or customs.
Or customs. You hypocrites! Mike aptly prophesied about you when he said, this people honors me with their lips, yet their heart is far removed from me. It is in vain that they keep worshiping the God Jehovah associated with the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, because they teach commands of men as doctrines, When you teach what you teach about the steros, you are teaching a custom as a doctrine. That's not the way it works, Watchtower Babel Crap Society. That's not the way it works. And if you Jehovah's Witnesses go back and read the 21st chapter of Acts regarding Paul and the apostate teaching, it took several years for that circumcision issue to be settled, because they were still trying to teach the law of Moses as if it was a perspective of gaining eternal life. See, you don't talk about that in context, Watchtower, because you guys would rather write your own context into the Bible and then teach it as if it's a command from God, and it's not.
So what this elder was saying in the clip is he's saying that Paul was being accused of apostasy because of the circumcision issue. What that has to do with, this judicial hearing, I don't know.
Well, it's because they make up their own context.
Yeah, this is just all an unbelievable pretzel twisting that, I was just sitting here just awestruck, that he's trying to do this. So, Jesse McCall, if you do not follow Watchtower customs, well then you are mentally diseased apostates. And that's what it all boils down to, is if you do not follow Watchtower customs. And truth has nothing to do about it.
Truth
Nothing
is not
at
in
all.
these people's hearts. It's not in their hearts. Okay, Jehovah's Witnesses, got a question for you. Go get your 2016, 2017, I don't care, 2000 yearbook, and look at the number of hours that your organization spent in the preaching and teaching work, and then you divide that into the number of those that got baptized any given year. How many hours does it take to make one proselyte?
About 2,000 hours per baptism.
And as you see right here in this video, if you watch the whole thing, an hour and 30 minutes, and you've just destroyed people's lives.
An entire family.
You spend all that time going from door to door just to kick them out in an hour and a half later? My goodness, that's why these taped judicial hearings are so valuable, because for the ear that's hearing it, you can hear the lies, you can hear the deception, you can hear how these men, these three false comforters, will actually lie to save face for the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, and they will not confirm what the Bible states. Right here, Matthew chapter 23, verse 15. Woe to you elders and the 144,000 hypocrites, because you traverse sea and dry land to make one proselyte. And when he becomes one, you make him a subject for Gehenna, twice as much as yourself. You want to know why this causes a problem for Christians? Because if you were a Jehovah's Witness and you decide to fade, or you decide that you become weak and you walk away for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, in the back of your mind, and Kim and I have gotten hundreds upon hundreds of emails for those that have been gone for a long time,
Left when they were teenagers even.
decide to come back because in the back of their mind, they know that they're going to die at Armageddon if they don't come back to this organization. You spend all that time traversing land and sea to make one proselyte, and then you make them a subject for hell and Gehenna. And you do this because it eats in the back of their mind until they learn to get rid of that fear that you people are nothing but a joke on this society, on the world, our cult that masks itself as a religion. In the back of these people's mind, it's still eating away at them. Well, if I don't get back to the truth right now, I'm going to die when Armageddon comes. And also, the other point that I want to make, just hold on here a second, is that these elders that chose to disfellowship this family, In your mind, you false comforters, in your mind, you have sent them to Gehenna, haven't you? You're not joking around when it comes to me and this whole nonsense that you Jehovah's Witnesses are pushing, because I see it for exactly what it is. I have the emails to back up exactly what I'm saying and how this whole bullshit eats at the mind of those that have been away for decades in the back of their mind. Oh, what if the organization's right? I better get back right now. And then they go to YouTube or the internet and then they realize, wait a minute, these guys are con artists.
Well, I was going to say it's actually a good thing. It's not all gloom and doom, because we do get hundreds of these emails, and most of them are saying thank you for your videos, because I was self-abusing, I was self-harming, I was ready to commit suicide, I was ready to go back just to have my family. I wasn't living my life until I found you on YouTube and started watching your videos, and it's like, oh my God, now I know. And so, thank you everybody for, contacting us and let us know that, because it makes us very happy to hear that if we have even a small little part of helping you free your mind from this cult and this indoctrination, then these videos are worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. We've done what we've set out to do.
So take a lesson from Job. Job was the righteous man. The three friends, the three comforters, they were the ones.
The three elders?
Those three elders, they were the ones that were
Erring
in doctrine, exactly.
Erring in customs.
Erring in customs, exactly. And and just another little side note for those that are doing YouTube videos in the XJW community. I've recently read some comments how some have said, oh, I could never do as good a job as so-and-so. I could never do a video like so-and-so. Do not underestimate the value of what you do. There is nobody in this community, including Mike and Kim, that think or that believe we're better than anybody else. There's only one guy out there that actually believes he's better than anyone else. That guy stands alone. So for you little YouTube channels, keep it coming, because your voice is powerful. And a lot of you people
underestimate.
Do not underestimate, because maybe you don't get the emails yourself thanking you, but Kim and I get a lot of emails from a lot of people waking up. And recently, and curiously, there's one that keeps getting missed. The ones that keep getting talked about a lot are Gilbert Gonzalez, JW Crisis, Susan Gaskin. A lot of these YouTube channels, at least from our side of the keyboard, are just getting praised completely. But there's one that is now curiously being missed. Ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. So don't underestimate your own voice, and you may not have that many subscribers now. We only started with 1 subscriber. That's how we started. Actually, we started with 0, and oh, we got a subscriber.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, oh, we got 10 subscribers. It just takes time to build up your channel. But don't think that what you contribute is nothing, because don't believe that. Everybody gives a wonderful voice to this community.
Evie Brooklyn, my goodness.
And we each have a unique voice, and each brings something different to the table. So just keep, don't think, oh, well, there's so many now, I don't need to do any videos, or, some who have been doing it for a while, oh, I need to retire and just let the next generation take on. No. Keep doing, what you do. Keep giving your voice to this community, because the more that gets in this community and more that does YouTube videos or blogs or anything on Facebook and whatever, you know what? The vast apostate army, the freedom fighters, are ruling social media. Jehovah's Witnesses cannot put anything in the search engine without our videos. Someone was just telling me that they put in Watchtower Bethel or Warwick, those three things into the search engine, and a whole bunch of our freedom fighter videos came up.
Yeah.
So they can't put anything into the search engine without, one of our videos, not just us, but
The
everybody's,
community.
the community's
Community.
videos or websites coming up. So keep up the great work, everybody.
Yeah, because there's really nothing that Watchtower would love more than to hear us say, well, my videos aren't that powerful. I'm not having that great of an impact. Watchtower would love nothing more to hear those words.
So don't let Watchtower win. Keep up the great work, all of you. And, we want to thank Jesse and McCall for recording this judicial hearing. And if you haven't heard it yet, recommend it. I'll put the link down below because it's excellent. There's a lot of things in there. And there's even, an elder even gives a reason why they got rid of one of the meetings during the week. But you have to go listen to it to hear it. So, I think that's it.
Okay, thanks for watching, and I guess we'll catch everybody the next time around. Keep up hammering on the Watchtower, because we are having an effect.
Yes. And thank you for all your emails and comments. I finally finished all of April's emails and comments. So thank you so much, everybody, for your love, friendship, and support and words of encouragement.
Yes.
Appreciate it. So we love you all, and you have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Bye.